Welcome to Next Steps, a podcast from Black Hawk Church in Madison, Wisconsin, where together we'll take next steps to grow in our relationship with Christ, to be formed into the kind of people He's created us to be, and to better love and serve those around us. Let's jump in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Next Steps podcast. It's great to be with you today. I'm joined by, as always, Pastor Tiffany Malloy, and our co-host, as we joked about last time, Pastor Chris Dolson. Chris, great to have you with us again today. You're like a regular now, so.
Yeah, hey, it's great to be with you, Pastor Chris the younger.
The younger, yeah.
And I'm Chris the elder.
The elder. We decided elder was better than older.
There you go. Yeah. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Happy to do that.
And Tiffany as well. Tiffany, you celebrated a birthday recently.
I did.
We promised not to embarrass you at the 9 o'clock service a couple weeks ago, but we did at the second one.
Yes, so. That was what my worst nightmares are made out of. But it was so fun to be able to celebrate my birthday with our congregation. And we were back together for a marriage course that night. And so got to see a bunch of you guys there too. So it was fun. We had a good day. Finished the evening with dirt cake, which is what I do every single year for my birthday. And it's great to be with my family.
Oh, that's fantastic. Awesome.
Very cool. Well, we'll get right to it today. As promised, we keep talking about these things that kind of show up in Revelation or maybe come into our minds as we've been going about this series, but that we just don't have a ton of time to dig into in the Sunday messages. And so we're kind of continuing with that theme today as we talk about things around the end times that you haven't heard that come up a lot in this series so far. Talk about the Millennium and Tribulation and Rapture and things of that nature.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah, let's go. Eschatology.
Eschatology, very exciting. I remember going off to seminary hoping that this would be one of the things that I would clear up in my own theology, and I think it just got more confusing, actually, as you study it. So.
Welcome to the human race.
Yeah. So that said, before we even get to the first question, just know that this is going to be a short conversation, and we're probably still only going to scratch the surface. You could spend a lot of time studying these things and digging into them. So we'll provide some extra resources and things as well. But yeah, we'll try to talk about this at a high level, but with some clarity, and give an overview of some of these terms and some of these different things. So.
Yeah, this is an overview flying in a jet really fast.
Really fast. Really high.
Over, because this is a massive topic, and we're just going to scratch the surface.
Yeah. Yep. So I think we asked a similar question last week, or maybe it was a couple episodes ago, but it's coming up again. Like the subject matter for today, I just mentioned that we haven't heard these words come up a lot, like millennium or tribulation or that kind of thing. So why is that? Like, does Revelation talk much about these kinds of things, or why maybe haven't we heard much of that up to this point in this series? Chris, do you want to say anything about any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk all day long, and you guys would fall asleep if I did that. But literally speaking, the word millennium does not occur in the book of Revelation. 1,000 years occurs, that phrase occurs only in Revelation 20, in those few verses that we covered. The word tribulation does occur in Revelation in chapter 7. It refers to a great tribulation. The word rapture does not occur in the book of Revelation. So that's really kind of interesting. I find it really interesting in that our listeners might not be aware of this, but whole schools of thought are named after the millennium, like pre-millennial. That's really fascinating. Yeah. And the word doesn't occur in the Bible. It's like
it's not just not in Revelation. It's nowhere in the Bible.
Nowhere. Okay. It doesn't occur in the Bible.
Wow.
Churches have been split over this. Friendships. People have lost tenure over something that is. So that's what I was saying the other day. We want to major on the majors, minor on the minors, and we can learn from church history. That's not been done with the subject of eschatology, for sure. And so, I read this little quote from, allegedly, this guy named Millennium wrote, "In Essentials matters unity, in doubtful matters liberty, in all things charity. I don't think with regards to eschatology that's really been practiced very well. Yeah. People feel strongly about words that don't even occur in the Bible. That's interesting. Mm-hmm.
So, if not in the Bible, or at least not these words themselves.
That word, yeah.
How, again, you said 1,000 years is referred to in Revelation.
Yep.
So, is it that we're coming up with terms to match some of the things like that we see? Or how do we end up getting so focused on these words in particular then if they don't even show up in Scripture?
Okay, that's a great question. Because we don't want to give people the idea that the Bible does not talk about things that are coming in the future. Because, I don't know, not a third of the Bible, but I mean a lot. Maybe a third of the Bible is devoted to prophetic revelation and all kinds of things that are going to be taking place. And so we don't want to give people that impression at all, because there are all kinds of places, both in the Old and the New Testament. And I think the thing that the listeners need to understand is that this discipline of eschatology, if you're going to dig deep into end times, you're all over the Bible, from Genesis 1 to Revelation 22. And so the book of Daniel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, all the prophets, Jesus' Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Paul's letters are filled with this stuff. So this is all over the Bible. So what people do to try to figure out what's going to happen is that they try to weave all of these different kinds of things together. And so you have authors that are writing to different people at different times. And so, wow, then you just gets in. That's really probably one of the bottom lines of why it's so difficult and why people disagree so much, is that there's so much literature in the Bible about these different kinds of things. What Daniel said here, is that the same thing that Ezekiel's talking about, and stuff like that. Yeah. And we make a reference to that I made a reference to that when I spoke. I mean, because when you read Revelation, there's all kinds of things that are coming. There's just an assumption on John's part and the biblical authors that people were reading and studying the Scriptures. They were meditating on these things, like Psalm 1 says we should meditate on these things, and so that it just comes out.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got off on that, but we don't want to leave people the impression that the Bible doesn't speak to this.
Yeah, that's helpful, but oftentimes what we're not doing in talking about these things is just talking about Revelation or just one book, but we're piecing together a theology based on all of Scripture and things that we see in various places. So yeah, that's good. That's helpful to know and just to start out with.
So it's the study of eschatology, is the study of the end time subject using all of the Bible.
All of the Bible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so getting back to Millennium, so the word 1,000 does occur, and in Revelation, so the passage that we looked at, and so it's like, okay, there are other passages in the Bible that speak about the reign of God on the earth, and so many times people think about these in terms of like, well, maybe that's the 1,000-year reign of Christ that Revelation refers to. So you're importing some Old Testament passages into the New Testament into chapter 20 of Revelation. Yeah. So then there's these schemes that people come up with in terms of the rapture and tribulation and stuff like that. We might as well.
Yeah. So one of the possible views that people could have, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that there is a literal 1,000 years where Jesus is on the earth reigning with people, but before he fully institutes his kingdom in some way. That feels a little bit
this is good. No,
weird, right?
That's a great question.
But talk through that.
So one of the views, premillennialists, they would, let me just stop and explain. So that language itself is kind of invented by the premillennialists, because they're the only ones that really hold that the 1,000 is literal, 1,000 years. So people who, so they made the terms up. So pre-millennial would mean that Christ comes back before the literal 1,000-year rule.
Yep.
Then they would say that people who don't believe that are amillennialists. So they don't believe, and it would seem like they don't believe in the millennium, but that amillennialists actually do believe in the millennium. It's the majority view of most of Christians, but they just don't believe in the literal 1,000 years.
Sure. Okay.
And the amillennialists would say to the premillennialists, well, all these other things in Revelation 20 you don't take literal. Why do you take the 1,000 years literally? So it's really, see how the anger stirs up people right away? Then there's another view, post-millennialists, would be that the Lord is going to come back after a millennial reign. And that millennial reign, by most post-millennialists, is not a literal 1,000 years, but it's just the church age, and things are going to get better and better and better, and then Christ will return. Yeah. I'm obviously simplifying these views.
That last one, post-millennialism, is kind of, it's fallen out of favor a little bit.
Yes.
Right? Like, because, I mean, look at the world around us. How many of us believe that things are getting better and better and better, and that on our own we can institute a reign like that? Am I understanding that correctly?
No, that's exactly right. It was the dominant view in the United States in the 19th century. That was the dominant view, post-millennialism. And then let's just say World War I kind of did, things were not getting better. And so it fell out of favor. But theologians that I really respect a lot, like Charles Hodge and other people like that, they were post-millennialists. They argued for that. The song, I can't think of the song now. Thine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
He's the Battle Hymn of the
Republic. Yeah. That's a post-millennial hymn, basically. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, maybe just for the sake of clarity, often we'll use the words like pre and post, and when we talk about tribulation in a little bit too, and we're referring to like pre-Jesus coming back or post.
So tribulation, so when you use the pre, it'd be good if we had a whiteboard.
Yeah.
So in terms, it is used, so millennium, so premillennialists would believe that there is a literal 1,000-year reign, and that Jesus is going to come back before that literal reign. And then there will be a literal reign of Jesus on 1,000 years.
Yep.
And then after that's over, then it's the return of Christ for the Parousia.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think I explained that right. Did I say it right?
I think so.
I need a chart.
Yeah. Premillennialists believe that Jesus comes back first, and then there's the literal millennial reign that happens.
Yes, that's right. And that's the literal reign. Now, amillennialists, they don't believe that there's going to be a literal 1,000-year reign, and that we're somehow in that reign right now. Amillennialists put a lot of emphasis, as I did on Sunday, on it's about the martyrs. That's the whole thing. And the premillennialists tend to not put a lot of emphasis on the Revelation 20. It's about the martyrs. They seem to, maybe I'm judging them, but I know in my premillennial days, I really never thought much about the martyrs. Yeah. It's right in the text. It's right there in the text. So it really, that's what I was emphasizing at the other day. So, and then the tribulation. So there's this idea of a tribulation. So this is in Daniel 12. There's a mention of the great tribulation. Jesus talks about in Matthew 24 and Mark 13 about a tribulation happening. John mentions a great tribulation in chapter 7. So this would be a period of time when there's going to be something that's happening on the earth that is just awful, awful, awful to God's people. And again, we're weaving a lot of passages in here. And Daniel 9 has this thing about the 70 weeks of 7. And so the idea that this tribulation period could be a period of 7 years. So if you're going to talk about a rapture, then the idea, and we haven't defined that, that the Lord comes back like secretly for his church to remove people from the rapture or from the tribulation. So then when you say pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, you're referring to the return of Christ in concerning that tribulation period.
Yep.
So that's the idea. And then most of those views are all premillennialist positions. So you have premillennialism, the Lord's going to come back before the millennium, and there's tribulation before that. Pre-trib would be Jesus comes back for his church, the church is removed, and then mid-trib, he comes back in the middle of the tribulation. Post-trib, he comes back right at the end of the tribulation, and then the millennium happens. So those are without a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Let's take a pause for just a second. There's probably people, I think of that GIF. Is it GIF or GIF? I never know. I think it's technically GIF, right? Where it's like the guy like doing mental like this is hard to follow and to track, right? We're using a lot of different terms and chronology and all that kind of stuff. So again, I think we've got charts and things like that we'll link to, and that can be helpful. But you're doing a great job explaining it. These are just they're hard to get our minds around and to keep track of all of the different things. So that's Millennium. We started talking about tribulation, and so I don't know. Do you want to go more into the tribulation piece? I think you just described like pre-trib, mid-trib.
I'm just trying to describe the views.
Yeah.
There's strengths and weaknesses with all the views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just to say out loud, maybe you'll give us kind of where you're at this point here at some point, but I went to a seminary that very godly, very smart people. And actually, the Old Testament professors held one view, and the New Testament professors were a completely different one. And so it's like they were actually modeling that it's okay to disagree about these things or to come to different conclusions. But I thought that was really interesting that even at the same seminary, people viewed things completely differently. So.
Which should really tell you something about the subject of eschatology right from the get-go. Yeah. And our denomination changed its statement of faith, which it rarely does that kind of thing. So it wasn't a statement of faith that we believed in a premillennial return of Christ. And then for, 15 years or so, there was lots of meetings, lots of discussions, and the denomination brought in all kinds of theologians, and it wasn't a quick decision at all. And then finally in 2019, the change was made to a glorious return of Jesus Christ, which I think is exactly what your seminary was doing, because we got really great people in the departments here that don't agree with each other. Yeah. I mean, we ought to have coffee and be able to stay in the same school, that kind of thing. Yeah. Not use tenure over this kind of thing. Yeah.
But our denomination was like, wherever you stand on these different things that we just talked through, like the point is there will be a glorious return of Jesus.
Of Jesus Christ.
That's the main point.
That's the
big
thing.
thing. So.
That's the main thing. And that is Orthodox Christianity in a nutshell. I mean, Orthodox Christians forever have believed that the Lord is coming back and it's going to be glorious, and we can't wait for that to happen. Yeah. So that's called the Parousia. We're looking for that. Yeah. It's all over the Bible. Yeah. So that's where we should put our emphasis. Yeah.
I'm interested. You guys, I bet there are people listening who are like, I just can't imagine a world where it's like, how dare you? Like, how dare you take this one view over another? Yeah. Like, it's just, that feels probably strange for many of us. So I don't know if there's anything to say there about how is it that we at times can get so caught up in these things that they do split churches or cause significant agreement. Like, it's good to be passionate about our faith, but how is it that these things in particular have led to such division?
Yeah, I mean, I can be a part of this. Yeah. I think I'm not a psychologist or sociologist, I'm a pastor, but there is a fear in our culture that when you change your view in eschatology, you're somehow lessening your view of the Bible in some way.
Oh yeah.
So that I'm becoming, I don't even like this word, I'm becoming woke or something like that. So I grew up with this particular view, and so if I change my view, am I less of a Bible believer than I was before, and that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you'll have people just yell at you and say you don't believe the Bible anymore, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So, which is sad. That's really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rapture would be a good illustration of that. So the idea that there's going to be a rapture, that Jesus is going to return, and then he will whisk his church away. The biblical evidence for that is so slim. It's incredible. There's a passage in Matthew 24 that really doesn't refer to that at all, but the main one is in 1 Thessalonians 4. But that passage can easily refer to the return of Christ. So, but let's just say that, you go to a church and they talk about the rapture all the time. The word doesn't occur in the NIV. So it's basically the idea that you're snatched away. The Greek is the idea of snatched away. So the Latin is reptua or something like that. So that's you're taken away. And that's it. That's the only, and then you build a whole theology on the whole thing. And then if you look at the entire Bible, there's no sense that the Lord is going to come back like twice or something, or a secret way. And then he's going to come back again. We just don't see that in all of the biblical literature. So all of a sudden, one passage becomes the governing passage for your theology. And then there's lots of things about difficult times and tribulation's going to come. But then all of a sudden, you're trying to fit Daniel's 7 weeks into some place, and you've got a pre-trib rapture view really quickly.
Yeah. That's good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So my struggle with that, and I used to be that guy. I was pre-trib, pre-mill. And then I think basically it was just like, there's not a lot of passages about this. We should really put our weight where most of the passages are. And that's basically the return of Christ is going to happen. We should pray for that and long for that.
Yeah.
But, so anyway.
And we could go deeper into all of these things as always. I think that 1 Thessalonians passage is the Greek word harpazo. Is that the one? Like you're caught up in the air, but there's a lot of what I was taught in Greek classes was this is a word that like we think of people rising up into the air to be taken away by Jesus, but actually it's also like it's language for like this welcoming party. So it's actually the opposite. Like we do go up into the air, but we're welcoming Jesus back down to the earth to reign with us. And so we could get deeper into all these things.
Yeah, the passage is 1 Thessalonians 4:15-17, but that's exactly right. And the whole idea of it could fit easily with just the one return of Christ.
Right.
Christ is coming back. People are resurrected. They meet him in the air, but they're not going back. They're not going up to heaven to wait around and come. But they're going to be with him. The whole context of that passage is to comfort people who've lost loved ones. That's the whole context of that whole thing. At pretty much every graveside I ever do, I pull out 1 Thessalonians 4 because people are mourning someone who's just died. And if they're a believer, you go, are we going to see this person? Well, yes, we are. That's why that passage was written. But to all of a sudden make it a key text for some incredible theological, eschatological scheme, that's odd. And I think that's what has happened.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about Millennium, Tribulation, Rapture. Tiffany, as you're sitting there, what are we missing? Anything else that would be helpful for this conversation, just to kind of get an overview of some of those things?
Well, I want to actually, can I go back to kind of part of the conversation that we're having? Chris, you asked, why do people get stuck in this? Like, why does it become so important that it ends up dividing churches and dividing people? And I think one of the things that, because I think those of us listening, some of us might really, this might be an important thing that we feel like we're navigating. Like we feel like we might really need an answer, quote unquote. Like we need some conclusion. We need to feel good about it, sure about it. And as I think about my own faith journey, right? And so as for many people, as we kind of navigate our life with God, at the beginning, people have kind of navigated, or they've kind of put a pathway of formation that they know of kind of how we kind of move through that as humans, and thinking about some of the first stages of faith, like the certainty and needing to like hold on to something really tightly. And it's actually super formative for us. It's not something that we have to necessarily reject. Like, it's something that is a part of our bonding with God, our attachment with God, our just kind of learning who God is and how we fit in the world. But as we grow and change and walk with God, there does, in a healthy kind of formation, there comes a place where you begin to say, you know what? I don't know. Like, I see that there's different ways of viewing this. And you know what? I think that I can believe something, this other person can believe something that's a little bit different. We're all trying to like figure it out. And there's like this humility and openness. Because I think you're just embracing some of the mystery. Maybe you have this secure enough attachment with God that you're like, actually, I'm good either way. Like, I'm okay being wrong. I'm okay not knowing this. And there's a lightness that comes, but it really does come with time and maturity. It's not something, honestly, it's not something to microwave. So I try to even look back at my teenage self, my 20-something self, who was super engaged in these kinds of conversations. I remember having arguments, yelling at people. I mean, like in college, right? Like you go, crazy, whatever. But I try not to judge that person too much. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's what I had to do to wrestle with the scriptures. Like the scriptures got in me, you know?
At the end of the movie on Winston Churchill called The Darkest Hour, there's that one scene at the end where Churchill says, hey, somebody says you've changed your view. And he says, and I think he's quoting somebody actually, he who doesn't change his mind doesn't change anything. You know, that kind of thing. The old. It's good of you guys to have the elder Chris around too. So, when I graduated from seminary in '83, I think I would have died for a whole bunch of different doctrines. I'm not sure. I wouldn't die for much now.
Totally. But I don't know. I think I've told this on the podcast before, maybe in years past, but Chris, the first conversation after I came on staff that I had with you, we were like walking up to a staff meeting or something, and I was like, I was just fresh out of seminary, right? And I'm just like, okay, Chris, here's what I really want to know. Like, are you a Calvinist? And I remember just being like, I want to know, because I've been trying to guess as a
what did I say?
You said, that's a good question.
All right, good. I did something right.
You know what? Like, that's important, and I'm glad you've asked that. And around here, we kind of major on the major and minor on the minors, and so it doesn't actually really matter. And I'm being like, kind of disappointed, but also actually that I think is like a turning point for me, because my heart didn't believe that, but I thought there's something to that. And I think that's kind of when I began to shift some of these.
Maybe people don't
open my hands a little.
People actually don't like Blackhawk because maybe we say things like that. I don't know. There's a kind of a thing. There's a thing called the Sin Out of Dort after Calvin. He wasn't a part of it, but anyway, there's different points. 5 points of Calvinism, the tulip kind of a thing. And I would always say I'm a 5-pointer or a 0-pointer, depending on who's defining the points.
That's a great response.
It's just this that kind of thing. And people have asked me on this with Revelation, like, what view do you hold? Are you premillennial? So automatically, I know that I know someone who knows the language. They've been around a little bit, but really, that's not I don't want to insult anyone, but wow, the millennium. Really, you're going to make whether or not you're going to listen to these series based upon those 4 or 5 verses in Revelation 20. I mean, that's kind of odd. And I was just thinking of another thing too. One of the things that makes this difficult is that there's so much prophetic apocalyptic literature. It's just hard to understand. So I think once you get the idea that it's not written to us, it's written for us. How would these people? Those are different kinds of questions. I don't think I was asking those questions that much. Yeah, that's right. 40 years ago when I started. Yeah,
that's good. I so appreciate that conversation you guys just had. I think sometimes we think that if we change our mind about something, it's a sign of weakness or immaturity, when actually it can be quite the opposite if you're willing to learn and grow and to actually change our mind about some things, even in Scripture. So I appreciate the conversation around that and just the openness and the humility to admit that I think all of us at this table have changed our mind on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we're going to change our mind in the future, you know, and so.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. On my book club, I have a book club and read a book a month, and we just did a book, I can't remember the title of it now, but it's like 7 Views of Atheism. You know, and there's not an atheist in our book club, but I mean, I just wanted to learn more because I know some things about atheism, but I really want to learn from atheists. And how do they disagree with each other?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no God. Okay, we're done.
Right.
But no, there's disagreement, you know, about that. So, any rate, I think it's important, to do that. Yeah.
Okay, all that to say,
Sorry.
we just no. This is great. We just said the point is not to come to a definitive conclusion necessarily on all of these things, and like we can still learn from the series that we're in, even if we hold a different viewpoint. All of that. That said, I'm sure there are people still wondering, like, does Blackhawk hold an official view on these things or the chronology of how this works out?
Yes.
Do we?
Yes. So we hold the statement of faith for the Evangelical Free Church of America. And the Evangelical Free Church of America doesn't have a particular chronology.
It's just the glorious return of Jesus Christ.
In terms of this subject.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't have the statement in front of me, but I mean, that's it. So they have gotten away from, mapping out, you have to be pre-trib, post-trib. No.
Yeah,
they're not doing that. And they haven't done that. The one was the premillennial return. And that was a really super good discussion over many years. But one of the reasons, I happen to be friends with the people who were kind of running the denomination, they were skittish about doing it. It wasn't about the theology. It was really about how people would perceive the denomination as becoming watering down the Bible or something like that. And they hired someone to do a survey of pastors and stuff like that. And there was that concern. So there you go.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And the denomination is not watering down their view of Scripture at all.
Yeah. Okay. So as we maybe try to turn a corner to wrapping up here a little bit, we've been in the weeds. So what? Like, what do we do? It's interesting to study and it's fun to have this conversation, even though we're just scratching the surface. But what do we do with all of this? Are there ways for either of you that, as you guys are processing this, that it should impact us or our walk with Jesus?
Yeah. So taking a cue from the Apostle Paul, his thesis on the resurrection is 1 Corinthians 15. And that's a really powerful passage. So he goes through this entire argument for resurrection. And he gets to the end of it. And you think he's going to say, well, therefore, because of the resurrection, we should then really look forward to the coming and getting, taken up. And that's not what he says.
Yeah.
So in chapter 1 Corinthians 15, verse 58, he says, therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. And that's a killer right there. Good job, Paul. So and it's like, no, all of this that I told you about the resurrection, that should affect the way you live your life today. So stand firm. You're going to have a resurrection body, but then be the kind of Christ follower that you should be. Probably referring to the rest of the letter that I wrote to you,
right.
And really be that kind of person. In 1 Corinthians 13 of love, being that kind of person. That's the greatest thing, is to being a loving person. Yeah. I don't know if that
that's great.
helps us.
And that, the life we do live in obedience to Jesus, it's not in vain, like it mattered and it's important, and continue in that. I love that verse. That was, it has been one of my life verses for many years. What about you, Tiff?
Yeah, and I think just the reminder, like, either way, whatever you believe about this, we all hold, like, Jesus is coming back. Like, and so thinking about how does that compel us to love our neighbor and to live the gospel and know that, like, there is a time that people are going to be judged, and how does that compel us to? One of the things, I went to a United Methodist seminary, and so it was about watch and pray is kind of what the phrase was. So kind of watching for God's movement and praying for the people in our lives and in our neighborhoods. And the end times, really, we didn't actually hold hardly any real views other than let it compel us to share the gospel in our city, in our neighborhoods, in the world.
That's fantastic.
I love that.
Tells you a little bit about John Wesley's influence in Methodism, stuff like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in learning more, I mean, there's a ton of books and things out there. So we'll put some things in the show notes and go to our resource page as always. One of, we were just talking earlier before we pressed record, and one that was really helpful and influential for me early on in my Christian walk was Surprised by Hope by N.T. Wright. It's a lot about this hope that we have because of the resurrection. So yeah, that's a little bit of an easier read. It's you might find that you read that one pretty quickly. But yeah, we'll come at things from not just an academic side, but like why does it matter? What's the point? And I think will be inspiring and helpful to a lot of people. Other ones that you guys think about?
Last time we talked about Evangelical Theology by Michael Bird. Yep. And again, that's a pretty thick. I failed to look up the price of it, but I am a book guy, so I think everybody should have a big, thick book, in their living room or someplace, because you can pick up a theology like that, and that's not light reading, and he covers all these kind of different subjects and stuff like that. And he's premillennialist, by the way. Yeah. And so there you go. And so read Bird. But he covers a lot of subjects. I think having a good theology is important for people. Yeah, it's
a good conversation starter. Yeah. Tell me about that huge book on your coffee table, right?
Yeah.
Another one. One of our somebody from our church wrote. It's tangential, but the rise and fall of dispensationalism.
Yes.
So it's some of the history of this, and then how it's affected our country. And so Dan Hummel, so you can check that out. It's at our local libraries, as they have several copies. But also, if you're not a reader, but you want to maybe learn a little, you can search his name, Dan Hummel, and Holy Post podcast. So they did an episode that I thought was good overview. It's a fascinating book. Super, thick, but
thanks for remembering that. Yeah, that's right. I made the acknowledgments of that book. Yeah, there
wow.
You go. Yeah, so he took my notes from my old classes, and we had great conversations. It's not a theology; it's a history.
He's a historian, but it's interesting.
Really well researched. Mm-hmm. So he's a good friend. Yeah. Good book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, any other parting words, you guys? Anything else as we wrap up today?
I think I don't want to steer people away from the word eschatology or the study of it. I think it can be really helpful for people, because you're going to really be all over the Bible. And as long as you have it wow, this is difficult view, this is hard. As long as you have that mindset, I think that's going to help you in your growth. You're going to learn more about the Bible, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's good. We're not trying to discourage people from studying it and digging in, as you talked about, Tiffany. It can help us dig into our relationship with God and to grow and to wrestle with some things, but an encouragement to have some humility and open-handedness as we're trying to figure it out, right? Because it's hard, it's complicated. Yeah. So. Well, let's stop there. We'll continue to have more episodes. I know we plan to do some Q&A coming up. You guys sent in some great questions over this past week. We got a pile of them to sort through. If you want to continue to add to that, we'll do an episode or two here in the next few weeks. So that's podcast@blackhawkchurch.org. Send those in, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. So I think that's it for today. It looks beautiful outside, so we're going to wrap up, and hope everyone enjoys your week and your weekend as well, and we'll see you next time.